Episode 335, Anticipation All Over. The day before the meeting arrived. It was the day before New Year's Eve, and representatives from all the major martial arts organizations on the East Coast came to Baltimore. Many of them were among those who the Blood Brothers blamed for what had happened to their founder. There had been fierce discussions about whether they should go, but every one of them had decided that worse things might happen if they didn't. Besides, there was widespread outrage about what had happened to Zachariah and the others, and the meeting might provide an opportunity to get revenge on Lee. More than anything else, however, they were united in the desire to preserve the integrity of the practice of martial arts, along with its continued existence. The hotels of Baltimore filled up with representatives of the martial arts organizations. In his room at the Four Seasons Hotel sat Brody Kent, the leader of the Sunrise sect. He had just finished his daily meditation and sat at the table drinking tea. He was lost in deep contemplation at what might transpire at the meeting. A young member of the sect was standing behind him. It was Brody's attendant. He looked nervous but determined. "Master," he said, "will we get a chance to kill the murderer tomorrow?" Brody sighed. "I don't know," he answered. "He killed Zachariah and the others. We must not underestimate him. But as one of the major sects in this part of the country, we are duty-bound to stop this blood brother, just like we drove out his predecessor." He paused and sipped some tea. "I just don't know if we can," he muttered. He didn't want to admit it, but he knew that the talents and resources of the Sunrise sect had decreased considerably in recent years. Even his skills could not hope to match his predecessors. It was the sad truth of martial arts in the United States. There was no interest in such traditions anymore. All anyone cared about was celebrity gossip and the newest shiny trinket. "The tea has gone cold," he said, changing the subject. "And this blend is undrinkable. Go and ask the staff if they have any other ones." The young man turned and went to find the hotel staff, leaving Brady alone with his thoughts. In another part of town, a man was sitting on a bed in another hotel room. His name was Grayson Ashbury, the leader of the Pouncing Leopard Martial Arts School, and he was also thinking about the coming confrontation with Lee. His wife sat beside him. She was trying to calm him, but he was nervous and tense. "Honey, please just promise me you won't start a fight with him," she said. "This man is a greater threat than any you faced before. You could get yourself killed." Grayson sighed and tried to smile at her, but he could not hide his sadness. His wife knew very little about martial arts, though she always supported him. But this time even she knew that he was outmatched. "And if I don't stand a chance," he thought, "is there anyone who does?" In yet another room in another hotel, a dignified middle-aged woman sat stoically in a chair. Her name was Belinda Hawkins, and she was the leader of the Iron Fist sect. Several of her disciples, all of them young women, sat on the floor around her. She was preparing them for what was to come. "Tomorrow's battle will be a great opportunity for us," she said. "We've never been shown the respect that we deserve. Despite our strength and skill, we've always been marginalized." She smiled and looked into all their faces. "And we know why that is, don't we?" The disciples looked at each other and nodded. "It's because we're women," one of them said. "The others are almost all men. Of course they won't accept that we're as good as they are." Her name was Melody, and she was the eldest and most senior of Belinda's disciples. Belinda smiled. "You're right, Melody," she said. "But now we have a chance to prove ourselves. Lee Harshaw is very powerful. Not even the leader of the Sunrise sect will be able to defeat him. But if Brody Kent can't match him, how could we do any better?" another disciple exclaimed. "We have to be cunning on our side," Belinda said somberly. "We'll hold our ground and let the men fight first. Lee is powerful, but there's only so much a man can take. Even if he is victorious, he will get tired. That's when we'll step forward, and I'll strike him down myself. Then, the Iron Fist sect will be the saviors of U.S. martial arts," Melody said, finishing her leader's thought. "The other gangs will be forced to recognize us. We'll be the first martial arts group in the country, and no one will dare disagree." Belinda nodded with satisfaction. One of the younger disciples looked displeased. "I thought we were here to protect the martial arts community," she said. "I'm sorry, but this plan seems selfish." The atmosphere in the room changed completely. The other disciples stared tensely at her, flabbergasted that she would say such a thing. "What are you saying?" Melody asked sternly. "Who are you to question our leader?" "I didn't mean it like that," the younger disciple responded. "Well then be quiet," Melody said sternly. Belinda raised her hands and gestured to them to stop arguing. She leaned forward and addressed the one who had questioned her. "I understand your objection, but I promise you that I have not forgotten the greater purpose. That's why we're all here." She paused and leaned back before continuing. "But if I can improve our status at the same time, then I'll do it." "I understand," the younger disciple said. She seemed satisfied by Belinda's answer. Conversations like these were happening all over Baltimore. The city was overflowing with nervous anticipation. For those who knew about it, the upcoming meeting was a ticking time bomb that threatened to set fire to the whole eastern seaboard. Of course, the vast majority of people were completely unaware. For them, life went on just as before, with no awareness of the danger they were in. On the following day, there were New Year's celebrations all across the city. A spirit of renewal gripped the city, and firework displays danced across the early evening sky. In the distant Appalachian Mountains, the atmosphere at the Moon Palace was equally festive. Decorations had been set up, a massive feast had been prepared, and Alex and Debbie stood on a stage in front of everyone. Since they were the lord and lady of the palace, it was one of their duties to deliver a speech. "Today is the first New Year's that Debbie and I spend at the Moon Palace," Alex began. "While we've only been here a month, we feel as happy and welcome here as if we had lived here all our lives. We wish every one of you a wonderful evening and Happy New Year." He took Debbie's hand and led her off the stage, and they were met by applause and friendly cheers from the crowd of disciples. They had all accepted them wholeheartedly. Just as they were about to step down from the stage, Celeste came forward and held out her hand to stop them. "Lord, please stay up there," she said. She looked over to the assembled crowd. "I think a kiss between our Lord and his lady would be a good way to start the new year. What do you all think?" The enthusiastic response of the disciples washed over them like a tsunami, and everyone in the room started chanting for Alex and Debbie to kiss. Alex and Debbie looked at each other. She blushed and lowered her eyes to the floor, but he just smiled at her and asked, "Do you want to?" Debbie looked back up at him, and they stared into each other's eyes. At that moment, it felt as if they had just fallen in love all over again. He leaned toward her slowly and put his lips against hers. They were sweet, soft, and warm. She met him, and he put his arms tightly around her and squeezed. She was surprised at his forwardness, but she closed her eyes and was filled with happiness.